Hidden airplane features every airline passenger notices. But what do they mean? Airplanes are packed with little details you've probably walked past 100 times. Tiny markings, strange grooves, odd-looking parts of the cabin that don't seem to do anything. But here's the secret. None of it is random. Some of these design choices are clever tricks to make your flight smoother. Others are life-saving features that could keep you alive in an emergency. The funny thing is, airlines don't go out of their way to explain this stuff. You'll sit by the window, staring right at the wing, and never know that the strange hook bolted to it could one day be your lifeline. Or you'll walk down the aisle, pass right under a hidden handrail, and have no idea it's the only thing keeping flight attendants steady during turbulence. So in this video, we're breaking down the hidden airplane features every passenger notices, but almost nobody understands. Once you know what they mean, you'll never look at your next flight the same way again. Let's start with one of the most visible and most misunderstood details on modern airplanes: the strange white swirl painted on jet engines. Number 1. The engine spirals. If you've ever sat by the wing during takeoff, you've probably noticed it, a neat little swirl painted on the engine's nose cone. Sometimes it's a spiral, sometimes a pinwheel shape. Most people assume it's just decoration, maybe even an airline branding choice. But in reality, that swirl is a life-saving warning system. Here's why it matters. Jet engines are insanely powerful. When they're running, the suction zone at the front can literally pull a person in. Ground crew working near the plane are most at risk, especially if they're distracted or wearing ear protection that blocks the noise. To the human eye, a spinning engine cone can look almost invisible, especially in bright sunlight. But paint a bold white swirl on it? Suddenly, when the engine is turning, that swirl becomes a flashing, spinning blur. It's a visual warning. Stay back, this engine is live. And it's not just about safety on the tarmac. Aviation engineers point out that the swirl also plays a subtle role in anti-icing. Dark and light colors absorb heat differently, and the swirl pattern helps manage the way frost forms on the engine's nose during cold weather. It's a tiny detail, but when you're flying through sub-zero air at 500 miles an hour, every bit of anti-icing design matters. There are even stories from mechanics who say the swirl has prevented accidents more than once. One ground worker admitted that when you're moving equipment on the ramp, your brain tunes out the constant noise. But that flashing spiral catches your eye instantly, reminding you the engine is hot and running. In other words, a little paint can literally mean the difference between life and death. So the next time you're boarding, glance out at the engine. That swirl isn't just some quirky airline-style choice. It's one of the most important and most overlooked safety warnings on the entire aircraft. Number 2. The emergency wing hooks. Now, if you've ever scored a window seat over the wing, you might have spotted them. Small, metal-looking hooks bolted right above the emergency exit markings. They don't look like much, just a little bracket sticking out of the frame. Most passengers assume they're random hardware or part of the wing structure. But those hooks actually have a very specific, life-saving purpose. Here's the deal. In the rare event of a water landing, passengers sitting by the emergency exits may be directed to evacuate onto the wings. Sounds straightforward, right? You climb out, step onto the wing, and wait for the rescue rafts. But think about what happens when that wing is soaking wet, tilted slightly, and you've got dozens of panicked passengers trying to crawl across it. It's slippery, it's chaotic, and without some kind of safety measure, people could slide right off into the water. That's where those hooks come in. They're part of an emergency system that allows crew members to attach ropes across the wing. Once the ropes are secured, passengers can hold on and guide themselves safely across the slippery surface until they reach an inflatable slide or raft. It's simple, but it prevents people from falling overboard in a moment when every second counts. This isn't just theory either. During real-life ditching incidents, like the famous Miracle on the Hudson in 2009, features like these were crucial. Passengers who evacuated onto the wings relied on safety ropes and crew guidance to stay in place while waiting for rescue boats. Without them, standing on a wet, tilting wing in freezing river water would have been almost impossible. The hooks are one of those airplane features you've probably seen dozens of times without realizing their role. And honestly, that's part of the brilliance of aircraft design. The most important safety features often blend right into the background until the moment they're needed. So next time you're sitting by the wing, take a look for those little hooks. They're not random bolts or decorations. They're your emergency handhold. The tiny piece of metal that could be the difference between slipping off the wing and making it safely to a raft. Number 3. The hidden handrails above your head. Here's one that almost every passenger has seen but never noticed. The grooves running above the overhead bins. You know, the little ridges along the cabin ceiling that look like part of the design. Most people think they're just seams in the panels, but they're not. They're actually hidden handrails for the flight attendants. Think about it. Flight attendants have to move up and down the aisle no matter what's happening. Meal service, turbulence, even emergency situations. If you've ever been on a flight that suddenly hit a big pocket of rough air, you know how hard it is just to keep your drink from spilling. Now imagine trying to walk steadily while carrying a tray of hot coffee. Not easy. That's where the hidden handrails come in. Instead of grabbing the seatbacks, which, let's face it, passengers don't love, crew members can discreetly hold on to those grooves above the bins. It gives them balance and stability so they don't tumble into your lap when the plane jolts. One flight attendant even joked online that passengers never notice these rails, but if you look closely during turbulence, you'll see crew subtly gripping them with one hand while continuing service with the other. It's one of those features designed more for practicality than looks, and it works perfectly. And here's the thing. They're not just for comfort. In serious turbulence, when carts have to be stowed and crews still need to get to their jump seats, those handrails are the difference between making it safely back or getting injured. In fact, they've been credited with reducing in-flight injuries among cabin crew. So next time you're boarding, glance up as you slide your bag into the overhead bin. Those grooves above you aren't random design lines. They're built-in lifelines for the people making sure your flight is safe and comfortable. Number 4. The smart cabin lighting tricks. If you've flown on newer planes like the Airbus A350 or Boeing 787, you might have noticed something strange about the cabin lighting. It's not just bright white lights turning on and off anymore. Instead, the whole cabin slowly shifts through warm oranges, soft blues, and gentle purples. At first glance, it feels like mood lighting, a fancy way to make the cabin look more modern, but it's actually much more clever than that. These are circadian lighting systems, designed to help your body adjust to new time zones. The LEDs are programmed to mimic natural light patterns, sunrise, daylight, sunset, tricking your brain into thinking you're already syncing with your destination. For example, on a long overnight flight from New York to London, you might notice the cabin lights dim into a warm orange glow, almost like sunset. A few hours later, as the plane approaches Europe, the lights slowly brighten into a cool blue that mimics morning daylight. Why does this matter? Because one of the hardest parts of long-haul travel is jet lag. Your internal clock hates being thrown off, and that's why you land groggy, cranky, and wide awake at 3 a.m. in your hotel. Airlines have realized that even small lighting cues can help passengers adjust faster, making the journey more bearable. Passengers who've flown with these systems often say they actually felt the difference. Instead of landing completely wrecked, they noticed they were more alert, less sluggish, and able to start their trip right away. And from the airline's perspective, it's also a quiet way to manage the cabin. Bright white light wakes people up for meal service. Softer tones encourage everyone to wind down without announcements. Of course, not every plane has this yet. Older aircraft still use the standard harsh overhead bulbs. But if you ever step into a cabin and feel like the lighting looks oddly cinematic, chances are you're on a newer jet with a built-in jet lag hack shining down on you. So the next time you notice the cabin slowly shifting colors, know this. It's not just to make your Instagram shots look better, it's a hidden feature designed to reset your body clock at 35,000 feet. Number 5. The dirtiest places on the plane, and it's not the bathroom. Most passengers assume the dirtiest place on an airplane is the bathroom. After all, hundreds of people use it during a flight, and it's a tiny space. But here's the truth. Flight attendants say the bathroom isn't even close. The real germ hotspots are right in front of your seat, the tray table and the seatback pocket. Think about it. Tray tables see everything. One person eats a sandwich, the next one uses it as a desk. And yes, some parents have even admitted to changing diapers on them. Flight attendants have set it straight. Diapers on tray tables. And no, they don't get deep cleaned between flights. Most of the time, they're given a quick wipe down at best. Then, there are the seatback pockets. They look like a handy place to store your water bottle, phone, or book. But in reality, they're a catch-all trash bin. Flight attendants have pulled out dirty tissues, food wrappers, nail clippings, and even used socks. One Delta Ground crew member said diaper-changing trash doesn't stay on the tray. It often gets shoved right into those pockets too. The problem is, unlike the bathrooms, these spots don't always get disinfected after every flight. Planes are turned around quickly, sometimes in under an hour, which means crews don't have time to do more than collect obvious trash. So what can you do? Always pack disinfectant wipes and give your tray table a quick clean before eating. Avoid putting food directly on the surface. Use a napkin or plate, and if you can, keep your personal items out of the seat pocket. It might look convenient, but you don't really know what the last passenger left behind. It's one of those hidden truths about air travel that seems unbelievable until you see it for yourself. The bathroom might feel like the dirtiest place on board, but the real danger is sitting right in front of your face. Number 6. The truth about oxygen masks. We've all seen the safety demo. In the unlikely event of a cabin depressurization, masks will drop from the overhead panel. It sounds routine, almost boring. But what most passengers don't realize is how those masks actually work. And it's not the way people think. The common assumption is that each mask is hooked up to a big oxygen tank hidden above your seat. Seems logical, right? But there's no way airlines could store massive tanks for hundreds of passengers in the cabin. Instead, when those masks drop, the air you're breathing comes from a device called a chemical oxygen generator. Here's the wild part. It creates oxygen through a small controlled chemical reaction. Basically, a tiny safe explosion. When you tug on the mask to start the flow, you're triggering that generator, which burns a chemical mixture that releases breathable oxygen. That's why the masks can provide oxygen for about 12 to 20 minutes, just enough time for the pilots to descend the plane to an altitude where the outside air is safe to breathe again. Flight crews are trained to move quickly in these scenarios because 20 minutes sounds like a long time, but in aviation, it's a countdown. That system is designed purely as a bridge, buying time until the aircraft is low enough for everyone to survive without it. It's also why flight attendants always stress, put your own mask on before assisting others. If you pass out from lack of oxygen at 35,000 feet, you're not waking up on your own. You've got seconds to act, and that mask is the only thing keeping you conscious until the pilots bring the plane down. Some aviation enthusiasts even point out that the smell from the chemical reaction can be a little off-putting, a slight burning or metallic odor. But that's normal, and it means the system is working. So the next time you glance up at those neat little overhead panels, know this. Sitting just inches above your head is a mini science experiment that, if ever needed, could be the difference between life and death. Number 7. Why airplane tires don't burst on landing. Here's a feature every single passenger notices, but almost nobody thinks about: the tires. When you're sitting by the wing during landing, you can actually watch them slam onto the runway at insane speeds. It's loud, it's shaky, and sometimes you even see smoke puff up from the friction. At that moment, every passenger is secretly thinking the same thing. How do those tires not explode? The answer is simple, but fascinating. Airplane tires are built completely differently from car tires. For starters, they're inflated to a pressure of around 200 psi. That's about 6 times the pressure of a car tire. And while your car has maybe 4 wheels carrying the whole weight, a large jet spreads the landing force across multiple tires. A Boeing 777, for example, has 14 wheels, and the massive Airbus A380 has 22. This design spreads out the brutal impact of touchdown, so no single tire takes the full hit. But that's not all. Airplane tires are made from a special kind of conductive rubber. Why? Because when a plane lands at 150 miles an hour, the friction builds up insane levels of static electricity. If that static wasn't bled off, it could create sparks. And sparks anywhere near jet fuel is a very bad idea. The conductive rubber safely dissipates the charge before it becomes a hazard. And here's a jaw-dropping fact. Airplane tires are tested to withstand speeds of up to 250 miles per hour without bursting. Some engineers even describe them as overbuilt to the point of indestructible. When a tire does blow, it's usually because of debris on the runway, not because it couldn't handle the landing itself. There's even a maintenance trick most passengers don't know about. Each tire is designed to take around 500 landings before it needs to be replaced. And instead of throwing them away, airlines often retread the tires, just like you'd recap a truck tire. That means the core stays strong while the outer tread is renewed for another cycle. So the next time you feel that bone-rattling thump as your plane hits the runway, remember, those tires aren't ordinary rubber. They're precision-engineered shock absorbers that take a beating hundreds of times a year without complaint, and without bursting under pressure. Number 8. Yes, airplanes have horns. It sounds ridiculous, right? Horns are for cars stuck in traffic, not multi-million-dollar jets cruising at 35,000 feet. But believe it or not, airplanes do have horns, though they're not used the way you think. First off, no, pilots aren't leaning on the horn when someone cuts them off mid-air. Air traffic is too carefully controlled for that. The horn is actually a ground tool, designed for communication between the cockpit and maintenance crews when the engines and radios aren't running. Picture this. A plane is parked at the gate, powered down, and technicians are working outside. The pilots need to get the crew's attention, but they can't use the radio systems because the plane isn't fully online yet. Instead, they hit the horn. It's loud, short, and harsh, more like a buzzer than a car horn, and it instantly signals the ground team that the cockpit needs them. Airbus jets, for example, are known for having a horn that's so jarring, maintenance crews joke it can wake the dead. Boeing's version is slightly less dramatic, but still unmistakable. You'll never hear it in the air, only on the tarmac, usually during checks or pushback procedures. What's cool is how few passengers ever realize this feature exists. You could be sitting at your gate, sipping coffee, and somewhere below your window, a $300 million jet might be honking its version of a car horn to say, "Hey, we're ready down here." So yes, airplanes really do have horns. You'll probably never hear one yourself as a passenger, but next time you see ground crew swarming around the aircraft before takeoff, just know the pilots have a buzzer button if they need to make themselves heard. Number 9. Seat secrets you probably never noticed. Everyone knows airplane seats aren't exactly built for comfort, but what most passengers don't realize is that there are a few hidden tricks built into them that can make your flight a little easier, if you know where to look. For starters, let's talk about the aisle seat armrest. If you've ever tried to slide out of your seat while the tray table is down or your neighbor is fast asleep, you know how awkward it can be. But on most planes, the aisle side armrest actually has a hidden button underneath. Press it, and the entire armrest flips up, giving you extra space to get out. Flight attendants use it all the time when helping passengers with wheelchairs, but it's one of those features that regular travelers almost never notice. Then there's the middle seat surprise. Believe it or not, on some aircraft layouts, the dreaded middle seat is actually slightly wider than the others. It's only by an inch or so, but it's an intentional design choice to make the middle position a little less miserable. Most people don't notice it, but if you pay attention, you'll feel just a bit more shoulder room compared to the aisle or window. Another hidden comfort perk has to do with the curvature of the cabin walls. On certain long-haul jets like the Dreamliner, the wall curves out slightly near the window seats. For tall or broad-shouldered passengers, this can translate into a little extra breathing room that makes a big difference on a 10-hour flight. And here's one more. Some seats have secret recline limits. Ever felt like your seat barely moves back while the person in front of you seems to be leaning into your lap? That's because not all seats recline the same. Exit rows, bulkheads, and even seats near galleys often have reduced recline to keep walkways clear. But you'd only know if you research the seat map before booking. So, while airplane seats may never feel like a luxury recliner, they do hide some clever design quirks. A flipped-up armrest here, an extra inch there, or just knowing where to sit can mean the difference between a cramped nightmare and a surprisingly comfortable flight. Number 10. The black box that isn't black. Every time you hear about a plane crash on the news, the phrase, "searching for the black box," comes up. It sounds mysterious, almost ominous, like this hidden, shadowy device that holds all the answers. But here's the twist. Most passengers don't know. The black box isn't black at all. It's bright orange. Why? Simple. So it can be spotted easily in wreckage. Whether it's in a jungle, on a mountainside, or deep in the ocean, a bright orange box is a lot easier to see than a black one. And search teams need every advantage when time is critical. But the color isn't the only secret. A black box is actually two devices in one. One part is the flight data recorder, which logs everything from speed and altitude to engine performance and autopilot settings. The other part is the cockpit voice recorder, which captures the last 2 hours of sound in the flight deck. Conversations, alarms, switches clicking, even background noises that investigators can analyze later. These boxes are built to be almost indestructible. They're designed to withstand crashes, fires, and even deep sea pressure. The casing can survive temperatures over 1,000 degrees Celsius and impacts of thousands of Gs, and inside is a beacon that sends out a locator signal for up to 30 days once it hits water, guiding recovery teams straight to it. There's even a push for future versions that can transmit data live during emergencies, so investigators don't have to rely solely on finding the device after the fact. But for now, that little orange box remains one of the most critical tools in aviation safety. So next time you hear the phrase, black box, remember, it's not black, it's orange, and it's quietly recording every moment of your flight. Not because anything is expected to go wrong, but because if it ever does, those recordings might be the key to making air travel safer in the future. So there you have it. The hidden airplane features you've probably seen 100 times, but never really understood. From the spirals painted on the engines to the hooks on the wings, every little detail on a plane has a purpose. And in many cases, those small design choices could be the difference between comfort, safety, or even survival. Which one surprised you the most? Let me know down in the comments. And don't forget, if you write airport tips, I'll personally thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, give it a like and hit subscribe. I'm always sharing the newest airport and airline tricks that make travel easier. And the YouTube algorithm thinks you'll love the video on the end screen, so I'll see you over there. Safe travels, and next time you fly, don't just look at the cabin around you. Look a little closer. You'll realize airplanes are full of secrets hiding in plain sight.